The Philadelphia Eagles season has officially come to an end. Super Bowl 57 ends 38-35. The Kansas City Chiefs take it. Louis DiBiase, Gino Camilleri. This is the postgame show. More coming up next.
You are Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. It's not a crisis line. It's not self-help. It's not professional therapy. It's professional therapy done securely online. Available to people worldwide, and they have a special offer to our Locked On Eagles listeners. Get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/lockedon. I'm Louis DiBiase. He's Gino Camilleri. This is the postgame show. The Eagles lose in Arizona, Super Bowl 57 to the Kansas City Chiefs by a score of 38-35. Gino, this, a Super Bowl loss is always going to be tormenting, but I didn't expect it to be like this. And of course, the Eagles are leading by 10 at halftime on the backs of one of the greatest first halves from a quarterback in NFL history. Jalen Hurts, at 24 years old, looked absolutely unstoppable the entire game. For them to lose the way they did, there were so many amazing things we could have thought about for 6 months if they won that game. Instead, we're going to be thinking about some tormenting decisions from the offense, from the defense, from special teams, from referees. It's a tough pill to swallow, and it's going to be a long offseason. I mean, it's been an incredible season with so many memories. The fact that, though, it's not ending in confetti is just, it's a lot to get over right now. Just, reacting, 10, 15 minutes after the game.
Oh, it's never going to be easy. And the fact that they've lost 2 Super Bowls in my lifetime by a total of 6 points and 3 in 2 games is just soul crushing to Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes. And you play some great performances against Tom Brady the last time, where he goes for 500 and you win that game, and Pat Mahomes goes for, what, did he not even break 300 yards today, and you lose this game today? And that's just how the NFL works, man. And I want to say one thing. I'm not going to be the person that points to that call at the end of the game. Like, let's get that right. That's not the reason they lost that game. That sucks. Yeah, for sure. Let them play. But
it was an awful call. The referees, though, they shouldn't get away with no criticism. And like
Absolutely.
The Jason Kelce, not going to complain about the ref thing. No, the referees, this was an NFL classic, and removing your Eagles bias or your Chiefs bias, that is not a call you make in that moment.
No.
That is the refs getting involved in the biggest stage at the end of a Super Bowl for them to take the attention away from the first good Super Bowl you've had since Eagles-Patriots. Is unacceptable. Yeah, I'm not going to be the 49ers fans, Vikings fans, and Saints fans and go for 6 months and say that's the reason you lost. You did not lose that because of the referee making that decision. You lost because Jonathan Gannon went back to who he was in 2021, and he turtled again against an elite quarterback. You've been complaining about special teams for 2 years, and Mike Clay yet again cost you. You kept saying all year it's going to hurt you in a big spot. It never did until the Super Bowl. The second half of a close Super Bowl. That's why you lost this game. So yes, that call is unbelievable, but do not be San Francisco all offseason. This was completely on, to me, the defense, and just uncharacteristic mistakes, and just awful.
You can't win a Super Bowl when only one of your 3 phases plays up to par.
Right.
I mean,
right.
Jonathan Gannon, good luck getting a job, bud. Like,
I guess the Cardinals were like, he's a finalist in Arizona. Fine, don't even get on the plane.
I mean, you had an all-time great personnel group that'll never be the same after this year. And you had that performance. You had 2 weeks with Vic Fangio. That was supposed to help you. And that was the performance.
He looked like he had no answers for
Jonathan Gannon.
Andy Reid had.
I mean, we look like idiots probably now saying that Andy Reid should have just blown this guy out of the water, which he absolutely did today. And look, I mean, unlike Super Bowl 52, you didn't come up and make a single play. Your offense played out of their mind. But special teams, have I ever been? I was Chicken Little all year. I'm Chicken Little. Like, the sky's falling. The sky is falling. The sky, like, folks, the sky is falling, and Kadarius Toney caved it in. Like, he kicked down the door.
He
should have
exposed
returned
both
that
Jonathan Gannon and Mike Clay in what,
Yes,
back-to-back drives?
100%. One player exposed 2 units in a matter of minutes, Lou. Like, we always talked about what was the thing that was going to prevent this team from getting to that good to great. It was the situational. Offensively, situationally, outside of the fumble, they did everything they needed to do. They dominated time of possession, had the longest drive in the history of the Super Bowl. When Jalen Hurts had to put together that drive after he fumbled, it was the longest drive ever in a Super Bowl, dude. That's unbelievable poise from that offensive coaching staff. And then the defense and special teams, when all they had to do was make one play, either unit had to make one play, they couldn't do it. You got outclassed. Like that.
And how frustrating is that, Gino?
That,
I mean, we said for months, this is the most talented Eagles team of all time. And the reason you lost is because of a defensive coordinator. And again, it's not just on Gannon or Mike Clay. Yeah, historic pass rush was completely non-existent. I mean, what a day to have 0 sacks and little to no pressure against a quarterback who yet again injured his high sprained ankle. And he's scrambling on you for a 20-yard gain to pretty much put the game on ice. I mean, it's just one of the biggest choke jobs in a Super Bowl. And Jalen Hurts, hats off to Jalen, man. He refused to let you go down. 304 yards today, 27 of 38, a touchdown through the air, 70 yards and 3 touchdowns on the ground. 5 minutes left. The Chiefs have scored on every drive in the second half, right? The Eagles defense didn't get a single stop. Hurts drives you down the field, scores, and then gets the 2-point conversion where he has to outmuscle 2 defenders to get that 2-point conversion. And the defense, you mentioned the 2017, all you needed was that one stop, just like Super Bowl 52. You needed that one Brandon Graham play. And I kept saying, who's going to be the hero? Who's going to be the hero that does this? It's all coming together just like it did last time. And none of them did. Nobody did. In the secondary, at linebacker, the defensive line, the only guy that looked like he wanted to be out there was Chauncey Gardner-Johnson.
And frankly, it's inexcusable because it's not like they were out there for 40 minutes. If anything, the Chiefs defense, I get it.
Exactly.
The Eagles were possessing the hell out of the ball. When you possess that for like 7 minutes and 21 seconds, all you're saying is, wow, if I'm a defensive player, my legs have to be so fresh. And all I want to do is go out there and fire off the ball. And nobody fired off the ball. Nobody in coverage had good eye discipline today. They ran the same play in the red zone on different sides of the field. And how do you score? Because you were undisciplined. And I have always said the last few weeks, especially, like, that gap to good to great, it's eye disciplined. It's getting to your gap, like allowing Isaiah Pacheco to have some of the runs that he did today. And ultimately Patrick Mahomes on a bummed ankle put the ultimate nail in the coffin. And it stinks because it was one of the all-time great offensive performances by an Eagles quarterback in a playoff game ever, by an Eagles offense. A.J. Brown with some unbelievable plays. DeVonta Smith, Heisman Trophy winner for a reason, folks. The offensive line played out of their minds. The running backs, the run game was shocking that it couldn't really get going, but the guy that had to run the football, build the plane, build the whole thing out of Jalen Hurts. Pay this guy whatever you want, Lou. Like, that's the moral of the story for me, is when we went back to the summer, or not even the summer, went back to when we were asking the questions, is Jalen Hurts the guy? The questions were, can he battle with Pat Mahomes? Screw the schedule talk, the strength of schedule, whatever you want it to be. He showed you he could duel with the best of the best today. It was evident. Pay this kid whatever he wants. Build around him. Build that defense. Yep. You're not going anywhere with this young core that they have, in my opinion, man.
It's tough. It just feels like an opportunity blown. And again, it's obviously hard to argue. It's hard to be super mad about losing a game to one of the greatest quarterbacks and head coaches of all time when they are in their bag like they were. But at the same time, you had this game. That's why it's frustrating, is you had a 10-point lead. You had every opportunity to close this thing out. And although you got to give your credit to the Chiefs and Mahomes, I mean, the toughness out of him when he re-injures that ankle after TJ Edwards tackles him right before the end of the first half, to do what he did in the second half is absolutely incredible. But you had, as I mentioned, you had every opportunity to put this game away, but the self-inflicted wounds that, would come up every so often this year, but normally were uncharacteristic, just showed up at the worst time. And even the offense, there were that last drive in the first half and the first drive in the second half. They had to settle for field goals. And I kept thinking, this is just, Patrick Mahomes, his win percentage when he's down by 10 plus in these moments is incredible. I was like, this is not a big enough lead. You did not trust the defense enough. Even the offense, they needed to turn some of those drives into touchdowns. The Hurts fumble was costly. The Quez Watkins drop deep down the field. There were just way too many plays where penalties that it was just on. It was like you couldn't really give the Chiefs full credit. It was on you.
Yeah, good to great. You can't make those mistakes. It's that evident. You lost today because of little things. And that's what comes down to deciding who wins a Super Bowl and who doesn't win a Super Bowl. Even though you scored 35 points in a playoff game against Patrick Mahomes, he scored 38. Your defense couldn't make a stop when you needed to turn all those drives into touchdowns, even 2 kicking field goals against this guy.
That's the thing, Gino. I know it's Mahomes, but you needed one stop. Like, we weren't asking for 20 of them in this game. You needed one drive to stop him. One. And that's why I'm not going to use that penalty at the end.
No, it's on Jonathan Gannon. It's on the guys, like on defense for sure.
It's sickening. It's just, man.
I don't know how the offense could do what they did, and you just have no juice coming out there. It really was shocking to me that defense wins championships, and Eagles in the last 2 Super Bowls just haven't played defense.
It was a shootout, and just like Super Bowl 52, a defense needed to make one play. The Chiefs did in the first half with that fumble. They pick up and score, and the Eagles didn't do that, and that's why they're going home without a ring. And it's absolutely devastating. 38-35, the final score, Super Bowl 57. Kansas City takes it over Philadelphia. We'll continue to recap this game right here on the Locked On Eagles post-game show. Guys, today's episode on Eagles is sponsored by BetterHelp. When you're at your best, you can do great things, but sometimes life gets you bogged down and you may feel overwhelmed or like you're not showing up in the way that you want to. Working with a therapist can help you get closer to the best version of you, because when you feel empowered, you're more prepared to take on everything life's thrown at you. If you're thinking of giving therapy a try, BetterHelp is a great option. It's convenient, flexible, affordable, and entirely online. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. If you want to live a more empowered life, therapy can get you there. Visit betterhelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's betterhelp.com/lockedon to get 10% off your first month of online therapy. This is the Locked On Eagles postgame show, one final postgame show for the 2022 season. And man, is it one that I was looking forward to for sure. And at the end of that first half, I'm like, this is going to be the greatest show of our lives. And instead, we're recapping a 38-35 loss to the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. And again, Gino, the positive person in me wants to take the high road and say, man, that performance from Jalen Hurts was incredible. This kid is 24 years old. He's about to get a new contract. You're in great hands for the future. You have a core on both sides of the ball. There's a lot of amazing things about 2022 to feel good about. And I could even start to feel that way quicker if the loss was different. But again, it's just the self-inflicted mistakes. It was the fact that 2 of your 3 units were just not showing up. Makes it a lot tougher to take that high road right now. And I know I will eventually on this show, but tonight's just not the night for that. They should be champions right now. And again, it's Mahomes and Reid. I totally understand it, but this was a better football team that was dominating in every area, and then they just choked.
I don't think I think the defense choked. Like I can't say the.
That's a choke job. The second half's a choke job. If you have a 10-point lead and the opportunities you had, even the offense, you have to score touchdowns in that situation. Like, you just have to. And
the offense did, dude, they scored 35 points. You need one stop. I'm not
saying the offense I'm saying the team overall choked. When you lose, when you lose a 10-point game,
they came up short.
Right. The team overall choked the lead away.
Yeah, 100%. Like, it's really unfortunate, but at the end of the day, if you look at the team that came out on top, it was a team that has been in this situation before, has been in multiple Super Bowls, has been the tested team. It's evident. Only 5 of the guys that have played in a Super Bowl for the Eagles that really make an impact, and those guys didn't make a huge impact today when it was all said and done, outside of Jason Kelce and the guys on the offensive line. On defense, Brandon Graham wasn't there Fletcher Cox wasn't there. Nobody really was there on defense.
Hassan Reddick wasn't there.
Hassan Reddick wasn't there. Like, yeah, how does nobody make that's the reason why, Lou. If I'm gonna look at it and say like who did their job today, the offense did their freaking job. Like they did their job.
Yeah, and I agree. When I said they choked it away, I think it's. I mean, again, there were some moments the offense definitely had more mistakes.
Yeah, would you want to score?
You can't ever
100%,
right,
100%,
right.
Yeah.
But you can't complain about it. A 35-point performance in that situation should get the job done for sure.
Yeah, no, Lou, I agree, man. Like every time when you're over the years, you're watching the games and you're like, oh, Buffalo should have went for it on 4th down against the Chiefs. That's going to come back to bite them. Oh, Cincinnati should have went for it on 4th down. Yeah, like that did come back to bite them.
That's the other thing. Like that's the thing. The offense, again, they deserve way less of the blame. But even that moment, Gino, you look in the second half, I know it was on their own 32-yard line. And it's a one-score game, but that's the exact moment in 2017 where Doug Peterson said, no, I have a legendary quarterback on the other side that my defense cannot stop. I am not giving the ball back to him. So what did he do? He went for it on 4th and 1 in his own territory, trailing by 1. Nick Foles finds Zach Ertz. He put the ball in the hands of his elite quarterback for that night, and it paid off. And Nick Sirianni, in one moment, he didn't do that. He decided to punt on 4th and 2. And I know that's a really tough decision to make, especially in that spot. But it was kind of the same situation as Super Bowl 52. There was just a lot of moments where, Gino, this game was so similar to 2017. I was waiting for those moments. It's a shootout between quarterbacks, up 10, you blow the lead, you tie the game, and just none of the magic from that game came back in this one. It was for the other side.
You know what the crappy part is, though, dude? It's like Nick Sirianni. You put up all these points, and it's like, I can't even trust my special teams coordinator to pin these guys back. Like that's the reason why we're saying they should have went, Lou. Like let root cause analysis of this.
Went for it.
Yeah, root cause analysis is because you didn't trust 67% of your team you didn't trust to do their job tonight, which is not enough to win a Super Bowl. And
like the fact that he didn't trust his offense there didn't make any sense to me. Like that's the only unit that night that was working.
Yeah, I would have left it in the hands of him. I mean, hindsight is 100% 2020, and it's just very, very disappointing because all year I had said until they prove me wrong, and it's like the pass rush proved me wrong, coverage proved me wrong, the linebackers proved me wrong, defense they ultimately showed up little on the biggest of stages, and you knew what the opponent was. It wasn't like the iceberg that hit the Titanic. This thing didn't come out of nowhere. This is the Godzilla, the beast that you knew was there the whole time. It was just like you had to create a weapon to go out there and combat it. And the narrative had to be you weren't going to stop Pat Mahomes. You had to contain Pat Mahomes. For the most part, you did, but situationally, you didn't. You can look at the numbers and say, oh, you held him to sub 300, but situationally, in the second half, he put up points on every single drive when it mattered.
Every drive. Exactly.
Every drive. Every drive, Lou. And that's what the Eagles won 52 on was that one drive when they needed to stop Tom. They ultimately did, and they didn't get to do that today.
Yeah, it's frustrating. It feels like, again, this team for the majority of the season, they didn't have a lot of these issues. If they did, they worked them out. But it's discouraging that the minute they played a really, really complete team, that's been the most consistent team in the NFL over the last 5 years, all of those issues came back. Even, Gino, the run defense, that was a problem for a lot of the time. In the middle of the season, today, 158 rushing yards for Kansas City. They averaged 6.1 per carry. I mean, what was Jordan Davis doing? Like the guy you moved up for in the first round, I thought had an awful game today. Where is Linval Joseph? Where is Javon Hargrave and Fletcher Cox?
Where were the penny fronts? Like where were the 5, the 3 tight, and then the 2 on the edge? There was nothing that they had worked that they did previously that worked. And Lou, it was always like, does Jonathan Gannon have that one ugly outfit in the back of the closet that he is obsessed with? And everybody's like, dude, stop wearing that outfit. And he brought that outfit out today. And it was so 2021 of just Hassan Reddick's outplaying Sam. And you're like, why is he in coverage, dude? Put his hand in the dirt. Like, what are we doing? We know this is
right. I mean, the amount of times that Travis Kelce is going untouched over the middle. They're not passing him off to anybody in zone. Bracketing with TJ Edwards. When he's man on man, it's with Marcus Epps. I mean, all for 2 weeks, me and you said, if you're not going to stop Travis Kelce, but if you prevent him from having the game that he did have, you're probably going to win the game. And like, his numbers aren't incredible, but 6 for 81. He averaged almost MVP. It had to be Mahomes, I'd imagine, with 3 touchdowns in that run. I would predict it was Mahomes. But yeah, it's just like, 6 for 81. Stud. And again, when you contextualize the plays that Kelce made and that touchdown, what exactly we feared was going to happen. It's like there's so many times over the last 2 years, we're all pointing out what is going to come. And Jonathan Gannon feels like the only guy in the room that isn't aware of it. Like, yeah, it's like the outfit that only he thinks looks good.
It's the car commercial where they're making fun of the people in scary movies where they're like, let's get in the running car. And Jonathan Gannon's like, no, let's go hide behind the chainsaws. And it's like, dude, why wasn't Darius Slay man matching Travis Kelce from the get? Why was Marcus Epps ever in your game plan to cover Travis Kelce one-on-one, man? It's like those things that we had said that Kyle Shanahan put a tight end on Hassan Riddick. You're like, oh, our coaches wouldn't do that. And you're like, oh, Marcus Epps, yeah, let's put him in man coverage on Travis Kelce. And why aren't we getting pressure on Patrick Mahomes? And everything that you had expected that you knew couldn't go wrong went wrong for you on defense today.
It's just one of the games that feels like you needed to bring your entire A game and every play you had in the playbook out. And it felt like Gannon just leaned back on what they did best. And again, that did get you to a Super Bowl, and you don't just throw everything out the window. But I feel like, I don't know what he did in those 2 weeks. It looked like he had absolutely no plan except for the base defense of what they do best. And they didn't have anything specific for Kansas City with what Kansas City does best. It didn't feel like he had a game plan specifically for that team. He said, this is what we do. It doesn't matter who's coming in here. And that destroyed them. To the point where, again, as you mentioned, in the second half, they didn't have a single stop. It was just a complete collapse from the defense and special teams. You're getting a historic performance from your offense. You just need one play, and they couldn't do it. So the Chiefs did it. They were kind of in the same boat. Their defense was horrible as well tonight, but they made the one play the Eagles didn't. And when you're 2 number 1 seeds in a Super Bowl, that's the difference. So Eagles fall 38-35, Super Bowl 57. Gino and I will finish up the post-game show. Coming up next, this is Locked On Eagles.
Before we get back to finish recapping the Super Bowl, we have a message from our friends over at FanDuel, the official sports book of the Locked On Eagles podcast and all the podcasts here at the Locked On Podcast Network. We're midway point through the NBA season, and now is a perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's a bonus bet back on your first bet, and if it doesn't win, you will get that money back up to $1,000. Go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. The Super Bowl is over, unfortunately. Hopefully you walked away with some money from FanDuel. I know I did. I put in some long shots that actually ended up hitting. Hopefully you walked away a little bit happy from that. But go FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment with FanDuel, and is the official sportsbook of the NFL and all of Locked On Eagles podcast.
This is Locked On Eagles post-game show. Super Bowl 57 is over. So is the Eagles season. It does not end in confetti.
Shame,
the
man.
Chiefs take it 38-35. And that's
shame.
That's the hardest part is like, this was the most fun season I think I've ever had as an Eagles fan, even over 2017. And this game was, that's why it's harder to swallow. This is harder than getting blown out to me because it was an NFL classic. It's the best Super Bowl since Eagles-Patriots. You're in a shootout. You couldn't draw it up better. Your 24-year-old quarterback is shocking the world, including us. He has 304 yards and a touchdown through the air, 70 yards and 3 touchdowns on the ground, a clutch moment with 5 minutes left in the Super Bowl, and he's making the plays. He was so calm. Even the one fumble he had, he instantly bounces back the next drive. You look at all the plays from A.J. Brown, DeVonta Smith, Dallas Goedert, the offensive line. There was just so many amazing moments that now we're going to look back on and still appreciate it, but it's not the same because it didn't end in confetti. And that's how I feel about this entire year. It's not like it's only going to now be seen as, oh, they choked away the Super Bowl, but it had an opportunity to be historic, where the greatest, most talented team of all time ended with a banner. And the fact that it's not ending in a banner is just it's devastating for sure. And I think that's the hardest way with the way the game ends too. You have to watch them take a field goal and there's nothing you could do about it. It's just tormenting.
We've always said how this Eagles season has been a culmination of a lot of Eagles seasons in years past. And I think today was very fitting as well. I mean, you lose the Super Bowl by 3 points to a first ballot Hall of Fame quarterback, one of the best ever. You did that back in 2004, 2005. That happened once again today. Jalen Hurts, man, what does this kid have to do to have his defense make a stop for him in a big-time game after he goes down with the cojones and takes a lead now in a national championship and a Super Bowl? Well, not a lead today, but, I mean, talk about just needing one stop on the shoulders of an all-time performance, Lou. I don't know how you – it's like that one meal that you get sick on and you're like, I don't think I can eat that again for quite some time, right? And that's what the Super Bowl is going to be. It's going to stink for sure to think about this one. And much like when we lost to the Patriots, I probably won't watch it for a year or so. But we have to talk about it. But
that's the thing.
He
sucks because he outdueled Patrick Mahomes in a Super Bowl. The story was supposed to be written. It was supposed to end in a Lombardi with him being the Super Bowl MVP, and he would have been. He brought his A game today. I could not believe what I was seeing with some of the ball placement. Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, that's the great thing is this team has a 24-year-old quarterback that is just incredible in the biggest spots. I mean, some of those throws, the one
to Dallas Goedert, to Dallas. Oh my!
And cover to a honey hole that's it's as tight as a wormhole, and he puts it right on the money. The DeVonta Smith throw down the sidelines. I know it wasn't a catch, but the ball placement there. The Quez Watkins drop. I mean, they were letting him down too. The refs and some of those drops. It was incredible what he was dialing up on the ground too. I mean, some of the plays with a right shoulder, by the way, that was still not 100%. I mean, that's why it's frustrating is because there was so much good. Like, again, you were going toe to toe with the most consistent team since the New England Patriots dynasty. And that's, I'm with you. It's going to be really hard. It sucks because this was such an amazing year, but it's going to be tough to go back to this for a bit. And you just feel like there's an opportunity blown. I think the future is super bright, but no roster is ever the same. You're not guaranteed. You have a lot of free agents, and I think they're going to take care of a lot of it and keep this core moving forward, but it's never going to be this team. And this team it had magic in it. And just to not get a Lombardi, oh man, it's really heartbreaking.
Not all fairy tales end with the storybook ending. It's not always like Disneyland, right? The NFL is the greatest bit of reality television for a reason. And you have to look at this one and say, the neutral observer, they got a great one. These Eagles, they sure know how to freaking put on a show, man. I don't know what more to say. And Lou, I know it sucks to get into like the moral victory side, but from how much this team was just in a weird place about 2 calendar years ago, and so many question marks filled the air coming out of Philadelphia to get to this point and be right there. It's a Philly story, really, man. Like, Rocky didn't win it in the first one, but like, he got his ass kicked, to be honest with you. And Patrick Mahomes kicked your ass today. Like, he's one of the best ever. He's a top quarterback. He's a unicorn. Andy Reid is one of the best to ever do it. And you're sitting here saying he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. Mahomes is a first ballot Hall of Famer. Travis Kelce is a first ballot Hall of Famer. The Eagles still have work to do to get to that great. And the good was there for so much. And when you're on the doorstep, like, you can't fumble it. And just those few things, Lou. And it's like the little Quez Watkins not running your route, like stopping your route just a yard short, like not going all the way through, and sometimes just not wrapping up your tackle in the backfield and not being able to get Patrick Mahomes down, and just the situational things that come back to bite you in those games in the regular season where you might be able to skate by against a lesser opponent. When you play the top of the top, you have to.
Well, it just sucks because it feels like this wasn't the team to do that in this moment. This team always just felt so prepared. They're just so mature from top to bottom. And it sucks that this is the game that they decided of all teams to do this in a Super Bowl. It's devastating. And again, like you mentioned, there's all these Hall of Famers on that other team, but you had them. And it would have just been so cool to have your first 2 rings be against 2 of the greatest dynasties you've seen, 2 of the greatest quarterback and head coach combinations, and you beat them both in a shootout. I mean, just it would have been such a cool story that got ripped away. And again, it doesn't negate everything about this year, like you mentioned, from where we came from 2020 up until this point. It's still incredible, and the future is bright, but I don't know. I'm not really in the moral victory mood right now. Maybe I will be by Friday's show, but just devastating for sure. Final score 38-35, man. Any final thoughts? I mean, been a great year. It's been awesome on this podcast, but this stings. I'm sure everybody can tell with the energy.
I want to say that this was a freaking awesome ride, man. Like even though it didn't finish the way that you wanted to, I'm really glad we got to experience this, and it was a really cool thing. And it sucks to walk away with the loss, but how they did it, I couldn't feel more freaking proud of this team, man. Like I really do. And I'm not going to sit here and whine and complain. Like, you got outdueled by 2 of the best to ever do it. And you just came up short in a moment when you had to come up big. There's not much more to say outside of that, my friend.
For sure. We'll get into it more. We've got to get right into this offseason because it's already the second week of February. Free agency's coming up. The Eagles have a lot of decisions to make. We've got the draft soon. So that's the one thing about the NFL is you don't really have time to wallow. And we won't right here on the podcast. We'll continue to recap the Super Bowl over the next few shows, and then we'll take a first look at the offseason. So make sure you subscribe to Locked On Eagles all throughout the offseason through Friday. We got a podcast on all podcast platforms and on YouTube as well. Final score 38-35. The Chiefs are Super Bowl champions. For Gino Camilleri, I'm Lou DiBiase signing off. As always, thank you for downloading. Thank you for watching and listening. And let's go Birds.
Fly, Eagles, fly.